Hey guys, back again with another video. Did you guys have a good Valentine's? I know I did, but then again I didn't have to deal with making a reservation at a fancy restaurant, paying fancy restaurant prices, dealing with traffic, dealing with crowds of people. I just did it all myself, and I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing today. So today we're going to do a crab and corn carbonara. It's a little bit of a fake out. We're not using eggs to make the sauce. We're going to actually use the starch of the corn to thicken everything up without having to add anything. And we're going to pair that together with a nice pan-fried New York strip. This is probably one of my most requested videos, is how to do a steak indoors when you can't go outside and just use the grill. So buckle in and let's get to it. I'm going to show you some techniques that'll make this quick, easy. I mean, if you got an hour, we can get this done. Let's get into it. First things first, sharp knife. Start with a shallot. Shallot would treat just like an onion, except, you know, it's a lot smaller. Alright, always keep the root attached so that you don't have so much trouble holding everything together. And one cut right down the length like so. Be careful not to cut yourself. Fresh chives, I'm just kind of trim off any ugly ends. We're not looking for a lot of these. This is going to be more for garnish than anything. Again, with garlic, use as much or as little as you want. For our corn on the cob, we're going to get a nice shallow bowl. We're just going to cut that right off the cob as close as we can. Now, of course, this recipe is best done in the summertime when you get that corn fresh from your farmer's market. But this being February, we're just going to have to go with that greenhouse stuff. Okay, once you've got the kernels off like so, take the back of your knife and then scrape down that cob and get all the corn milk and juices out of it. That's what's going to actually thicken up our carbonara sauce. And carbonara is in quotations there. We're going to do 2 cobs worth for this. Two slices of bacon. I like to just cut that down the middle, stack. So I got a couple sprigs of basil here. Just gonna tear the leaves off. Even though this is a fake carbonara, it's got to have cheese. I've got a wedge of Parmesan, a wedge of Asiago, and you can usually tell the Parm from the Asiago. It's a deeper yellower color. The Asiago is a little bit whiter, and you don't have that outside rind on the Asiago. They're very similar cheeses, slightly different flavors. Asiago is a little less salty. I like to do a nice blend for my carbonaras. And one of the great things about these flexible, these little thin cutting mats is 1, it protects my pastry mat, and 2, it lets me just dump everything into a bowl. So I'm just going to go ahead and shave that cheese right there on that cutting board. Shred this really fine because, again, The finer you make things, the smaller the pieces are, the quicker it cooks in the pan. Now of course you can always do this in the food processor. But I'm doing it by hand because well, my grater here is a little bit finer than my food processor is. So again, about a cup of each, very fine, very fine. Those shreds will melt very quickly and help us get our sauce made that much faster. And again, these cutting boards are just awesome for this right here. And our last thing to talk about here is our crab meat. I've got about 8 ounces. I went ahead and just bought lump crab meat. You can feel free to get your own crab legs and crack them apart. And if you do get the lump, or even if you do crack them apart yourself, just take the time to go through, make sure there's no little shell pieces in there where you cracked them open. You don't want somebody to break a tooth. And again, these cutting boards are great for just this purpose. Alright, over here in the background we have some salted water going for our pasta. Going to turn our burner up to a medium heat. We're going to go ahead and put the bacon in while the pan is a little cold. And we'll just give it a little drizzle of olive oil. We're going to just let that render, get that fat out of there. Fat equals flavor. And as per usual, I've got all my mise en place, everything's ready to go, lined up in the order it's going to go in the pot. Starting the bacon off in a cold pan will prevent it from ever sticking. That and that little drizzle of olive oil we gave it. But keep it moving. Don't let it scorch. We're not looking for it to get super brown, we're just looking to render off some of that nice bacon fat. So you see it gathering up there in the pan. This pan is really great for this sauce because it's fairly deep and yet it's really wide. It's got a big footprint. And having a footprint that large means that we have more surface area to cook on, more heat to cook on, and that's going to make everything just go that much faster. Okay, once we start to get brown, which is right about in here, and we've got all that fat rendered out, we're going to go ahead and toss in our shallots, our garlic, and our corn. And again, with that corn, make sure to get all the juices, scrape that bowl, get it all down in there. And again, keep it moving around. At this point you can turn your heat down a little bit to a medium-low. I'm going to go ahead and start dropping in some seasoning, just a little salt and pepper. And again, we're not looking to brown this or actually cook it, we're just trying to get it hot. So about 4 or 5 minutes into things, we're going to hit this with some heavy cream. We're going to use about a cup worth, maybe a little more. You don't want everything floating in here, but you do want it covered pretty well. Now we can take this back up to a medium heat. Once we start seeing wisps of steam, we're going to start blending in our cheese. Alright, we're starting to get little bubbles form. Another stir, you start seeing that steam. We can start mixing in our cheese. Just go about a third of a cup at a time. Add it and let it blend. Now the sauce consistency, that's another one of those things. It's up to you. You can make this as thick or as thin as you want. I'm doing this on some fettuccine noodles, so I'm going to want the sauce to be a little stout. Feel free to turn that heat down. You don't want this to boil. You don't want to take a chance of scorching it. You're just looking for it to be hot enough to melt that cheese. Alright, at this point, we've got our cheese in there. We're at the consistency I like. So now we're going to hit it with that basil and that crab meat. And just mix that through. Now, if crab meat is not looking to cook, it's just looking to get hot. At this point, again, very forgiving. It's a little bit too thick. Go ahead and just give it a little bit more heavy cream. To thin it out a little bit more. And at this point, your sauce is done. We can go ahead and move this to another burner, keep it on a low heat while we get our steak ready to go. I've got a couple of New York strips. I've let those warm up to about room temperature. And I'm just going to give them a really good coating of our herb salt. Both sides. And while we're doing this, our pan is getting rip-roaring hot. Get a little sloppy with it, but season it all sides. So letting these come up to room temperature, it takes about 20 minutes. It's not a big deal. You're not doing anything. You're just leaving them sit on the counter. It's going to give you a little bit more flexibility when you're searing these. It's going to help you to get that internal temperature exactly where you want it. It just makes the whole process a lot faster. These are inch and a quarter cuts. So baseline, 3 minutes to a side to get it up to a medium rare. But again, I can't give you specific times. You're just going to have to keep your eye on it because I don't know what your oven is doing versus mine. Okay, needless to say, cast iron is best for this, but stainless steel is fine. All I'm asking is don't use non-stick. You want this to be able to stick, to give you a good sear, and to build up some flavor. This has been on a medium-high heat. It's raging hot. You can tell because of the way the oil acts on there. Now this is a grape seed oil. It has a very high smoke point, so it takes a lot to make it burn. To that we're going to add a tablespoon of butter. And now you can see just how raging hot that is. Now while that's doing its thing and melting down, we're going to add a sprig of rosemary, 4 or 5 sprigs of thyme, and about 4 or 5 cloves of really large cloves of garlic. The herbs and the garlic, they're just going to flavor that oil for you. Okay, we're going to make a little bit of room here. It's time for the steaks to come in. generally speaking, you'll lay those down and then away from you, so that if you do splatter and splash, it doesn't get on you. Now, as soon as you put them down, don't mess with them. Don't touch them anymore. Just leave them sit. It's going to take a good 3 to 4 minutes. We're on a medium-low heat in a pan that was already raging hot. So it's still got a lot of heat to it. And what you're going to want to do is leave these sit, and that steak will sear to that non-stick pan. And then when they're ready to flip, they'll come up easy. They'll let you know when they're ready to flip. Now for these steaks, I'm going to finish them entirely in the skillet on the stove top. But feel free to turn your oven on to about 325, 350. Once you get these flipped, you insert them into the oven to let them come up to temperature. It saves you a little bit of time babysitting. You just got to keep a real close eye on your time. For these, I'd say probably 8 minutes altogether for a medium rare to medium. But again, who knows? So while our steak's cooking, we've gone ahead and boiled the fettuccine, gone in there for about 3 or 4 minutes, fresh. And we're just going to take this straight from the water here into our pasta sauce over here. Now that sauce is going to be a little on the thick side. The starch from this water will help make it even a little bit more thick. And that's okay, because this is going to be basically a side for our steak. Okay, we've hit the 3-minute mark. You can see right up the side there, that steak is cooking fairly well, fairly quickly. Look at the crust on that. Oh, that's beautiful. And once we flip it, whether you want to finish it in the oven or not, add a little bit more butter. Another tablespoon of butter. Tablespoon and a half. And again, I let it sit. Don't touch it. It'll sear. Some of the other things to look at when a steak is cooking is look at the fat starting to render down. The fat is losing that white color, and it's also softening up, and it's starting to run. So about 1.5 minutes into that second side, and it's now not sticking. You see that fond in the bottom of the pan. So at 1.5 minutes, what I'm going to do is tilt this still a little bit. I'm going to bake these steaks like so, and just keep that fat moving and running all over that steak. And that's just, we're just taking the flavor out of the pan, putting it back on the steak. Now at the 3-minute mark, I'm feeling like we're coming up to medium pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and actually take it off the burner and let it rest. Letting it rest, even though you take this pan off the burner, it's still hot, so the steak will continue to cook. So you want to go medium rare if you want to get to a medium. Medium if you want to get to a medium well. Don't go past medium well, please. But you want to take this pan off, let it sit, let it cool down, let those juices that are in that steak get reabsorbed by the steak. Okay, we've let it rest for about 3 or 4 minutes. It's a moment of truth. I'm going to cut into this bad boy. Let's see what we're looking at. That is a perfect textbook medium. So now you can just slice this into some nice sized pieces like so, and then let's go to plating up. Alright, so we'll start off with our pasta. We'll just take a fork, a pair of tongs, right, middle of the plate like so. Again, this is super cheesy. And that sauce is nice and thick. It's really sticking to the noodles. Just lay our steak right alongside. Like so. Fan it out a little bit. Little fresh chives all over our plate. And that is ready to eat. So all told, 8 minutes to a perfect medium, packed full of flavor and juicy. That steak is awesome. There you go, guys. An hour's worth of work and you've got a meal that is going to impress anybody you put it in front of. Your loved ones, friends, family, they're going to appreciate it even more because they know you made it yourself and you didn't pay somebody like me to do it for you. I know it's a lot of calories, but we don't eat like this that often. I mean, just real big holidays and occasions, you know, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's. But now that you know the technique, Fridays, Mondays, Wednesdays, it's not that hard. It's an hour's worth of work. You can eat like this any night of the week that you want to. So be careful with that kind of power. The other big tip I could give you is, I know a lot of people can't tell just by touch how done a steak is. It's acceptable. I mean, we're not all pro chefs. But it is your kitchen, so take advantage of that. Cheat a little bit. Cut one open, look at it, see what it's doing. Learn. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. And as always, you know what to do. Go push buttons, go check us out. Let us know you love us.